Sometimes when I make things, it just works out. And other times, I end up with serious issues that I have to fix. I had a bunch of this spalted walnut and crappy maple laying around and wanted to try to build something I've always thought about. A guitar stand carousel. I just thought it would be cool to have a stand that displays multiple guitars on its face rather than stacked sideways side by side. I've never been one to work off of plans. I kind of just think about a design and throw my best at it. And as you saw at the beginning, that didn't work out in this case. At least not yet. I definitely came up with a better design that you'll see in just a little bit. As a guitar builder, I think it's fun to dive into easier projects to sort of refresh before the next build. I went hard on the last two guitars with Blacktail Studio and definitely needed a break for a minute by doing something easy. And there's nothing easier than gluing up what looks like face grain cutting boards. Unfortunately for me, I have a propensity to make things difficult on myself, meaning I couldn't just make this basic either. Also unfortunately for me, I went with my nice spalted walnut and maple to make a prototype versus cheap, shitty wood. My idea for this was a stand that could sit next to a guitar player and amp, or sit in a corner, to conserve space and easily help choose what guitar you'd like. I have the attention span of a goldfish and get bored easily, so having something like this would keep me practicing more often. What you've seen so far is me preparing all the basic parts. This stand has a simple design, but it also needed to be sturdy to hold the weight of 4 guitars. In my mind, sturdy means thick, and thick means girthy. So I laminated this girthy post to be the main support system in the middle. One thing about making guitars is you almost never get to use basic 90-degree angles and straight lines. Right angles and straight lines make keeping up with the math much easier, so of course I had to make most of this thing out of circles instead. I think this beam is the only straight piece in the whole build. To make the stand spin, I found some Lazy Susan hardware that said it was rated for like 500 pounds. It felt flimsy, so I don't know how true that is. I will say this thing spun really fast, but I replaced it with something sturdier later on. One thing about my style of woodworking is I use centerlines on almost everything. There's something interesting about centerlines. If done properly, it eliminates a lot of the math and problem solving ahead of time. I just normally line pieces up along their center lines and everything just falls into place. I could honestly just secure this all with dominoes or screws, but I felt this was a good time to touch up on my mortising skills. The easiest way to do mortises is by making templates based off the width of your tenon piece. I just used the beam to set the rip capacity on my table saw and rip down a few pieces of MDF to use as templates. I used a 1/2-inch pattern bit to hog out the mortise rather quickly, and I found this is the quickest, easiest way to set up and route accurate mortises without using too much of brain capacity. The pattern bit left the mortises with rounded corners, so rather than squaring them up with a chisel, I just matched the corners with a roundover bit. Again, super easy. I should probably make router templates based on this lid because I've used it more times than I could count to make large rounded corners. A rectangle base seemed too basic for this, so chopping off the corners was the obvious fix. I didn't even do any proper math at this point to see if this was tip proof. For all I know, this could have fallen over after putting the first guitar on it because it was off balance. It appears I'm all about risking precious handmade guitars at the expense of not having to plan ahead too much. In all seriousness, I did do this later, and I have plans for the properly balanced stand with what I call anti-clang features. Glue would probably be enough, but why not pre-drill for some screws as well? I'm all about overbuilding whenever feasible. It may not be perfect, but damn it, it'll be sturdy as hell. I was starting to get excited at this point because I was going to see if my idea actually worked. Normally, I'm most excited for applying finish, but to see this idea come to fruition was much more appealing. I'm not much of an inventor as I am a designer, but I definitely felt like Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb with this idea. I seriously couldn't find any sort of rotating stand online. I don't know if it was because it was a bad idea or not, but it seemed like something I would purchase. In fact, I posted a picture of this design on a few different socials and was surprised by the amount of people who loved it and asked to either buy one or plans to make their own. Maybe I was onto something. Anyways, if this is your first time here, you're probably not aware of the big guitar giveaway I'm doing. My buddy Sean and I drove to Blacktail Studio in Oregon, and Cam gave us a bunch of wood to make guitars inspired by his furniture. We're actually giving one of those guitars away on January 1st, 2025 at 7 p.m. I'll leave a link to the video and website entry form in the description. That being said, I've given a lot of guitars away, and I'm not making enough money to continue to do that, but I want to. That's why we decided to come up with channel memberships. Each member will be entered to win a custom guitar made on this channel 3 times a year. Every month you're a member, you get an entry. If you sign up before January 1st, 2025, you'll get 10 additional entries to win the next guitar giveaway. Members also get entered to win amplifiers, guitar stands like this, guitar router templates, and one-on-one sessions with us on how to build your own guitar. And the obvious perk will include behind-the-scenes footage at Blacktail Studio, along with other big-name YouTubers and musicians that we end up building guitars for. Best part is, we're a small channel and likely won't get a lot of members right away, so your chances of winning one or more guitars is huge right now. Just click the join button under this video and you'll automatically be entered. Okay, back to the build. I had some hard wax oil left over from a prior build, and since easy was my goal here, it seemed like the right choice. Maybe one day I'll get into the high gloss spray finishes, but my shop really isn't equipped for that right now. Physically rubbing on finish to reveal the grain also makes me feel some type of way, which I'm likely not allowed to speak about in detail on YouTube. After everything got some finish applied, I rushed to assembly without even waiting for it to cure. I didn't pre-drill any other holes or anything. I just slapped this thing together as fast as I could so I could test it out. All seemed well until I started to spin it and realized my nice, one-of-a-kind handmade guitars were banging into each other like wind chimes. I needed to fix this and didn't have any nice wood left, so my best idea was to go to the place I knew had the cheapest and shittiest wood imaginable. I got some cheap pine and developed a newer design to solve the clanging issue. It's nearly exactly the same, so I rushed through the build until I reached a point where things were different. The idea was to push the guitars out a bit and change the rotating axis from the top to the bottom. This required some weird angles, but nothing too crazy. The stand is nearly exactly the same as the first besides a few minor changes, and of course, the beautifully wasted wood grain that I can't fix. Again, I wanted to test this out so fast I just decided to spray paint the whole thing black off camera. These little squares were attached to the center beam with dowels to push the guitar bodies out. No, this won't create back bow, and no, this isn't bad for the guitars. I also ended up putting little adhesive-backed rubber pads on the squares to help keep the guitars from sliding around and also kept them from getting scratched. And just like that, problem solved. If you want to make your own version of this to keep or mass produce, go right ahead. I have plans in the description. Thanks for watching.